And we are live for cardio Q&A. So we did one of these, I believe, last week. Doing my cardio a little bit earlier tonight. It's about 9:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, another night where I'm getting cardio in pretty late in the day, but it's one of those things where you got to just get it in while you can, and not every day is the same for me. So currently I'm doing 25 minutes, moderate intensity, 5 days per week. So I typically like to try to get these in on my training days. And then my rest days, I'm training 5 days per week right now. My 2 rest days, I like to try to take those days off completely. So most of my sessions I try to make fall on my training days, which currently I'm training usually in the morning or in the afternoon. So I'll usually push the cardio back to the evening. But it's a great time to get on here, answer some questions, and just interact with you guys. These lives have been really cool lately. I've really been enjoying them, to be honest with you. The questions you guys have been asking have been really cool. I actually did a live earlier today, so if anybody happened to be on that live earlier, you guys are on 2 lives today, so not bad at all. We discussed really one thing that's been, really a big topic that I want to discuss lately is really just kind of how all the trends online lately have everybody following the same things, right? But, I train with some of the best bodybuilders and athletes in the world, and I interact with them on a regular basis. And the one message I want to really strive to tell you guys is, online is really a very small part of the lifting community and population compared to what's really going on in real life. And not everybody trains the way guys online recommend. So there's a lot more to it than what you guys hear and see. So I want you guys to keep an open mind with all that stuff. So I have, actually, you guys, if you have questions, let me know and we'll discuss them here. You divide cardio and weight sessions. Yeah, so realistically, cardio can be done at any time during the day, whenever you fit that in. Now, post-workout's a great time to do it, especially if, you have to, get your cardio in at the gym, and you don't have cardio equipment at home. Obviously, the most convenient thing to do is just after your training session, get your cardio in. Me personally, my training sessions tend to run pretty long, like they're at least 90 minutes. And after I train, the last thing I want to do is cardio. I really want to get home. I want to eat. I want to shower, and I want to relax, right? Or if it's, I'm going to the gym in the morning, I want to get to work, right? So for me, personally, I'd rather space it out, but that's really personal preference. I tend to feel like anything after training is just not as productive. So the last thing I want to do is just half-ass a cardio session, really. I'm 37, fairly good massive muscle. How many years can I still build muscle up to? So it's a great question, and a lot of people, and I've actually spoken about this before, a lot of people associate age with kind of like this time frame of when you can build muscle, right? Like if you're past a certain age, you can't build muscle. But the fact is, if you start training at 37, you might realistically be building more muscle for the next 10 years, right? Now, I've been training since I'm 14 years old. I'm 36, right? Realistically, I'm at that stage now where the next 10 years are probably not going to be the 10 years where I grow the most muscle, right? But if you started training right now, the next 10 years, you might still continue to grow at a really, really consistent rate. So it's more about, the amount of years you've put into this versus how old you are. Obviously it becomes more difficult past a certain age, but that's not to say that once you hit a certain age that you just can't put muscle on. I mean, the fact is most bodybuilders kind of peak in their late 30s, right? So that tells you something. Even if they start training as teenagers or early 20s. So it's not like once you hit 35, you're not going to build muscle anymore. A lot of people get like these weird numbers in their head where they think, okay, I'm past my prime. But the fact is, especially if you start late, you could be, growing for years and years and years. Give me some bulking tips and not to do things? Well, number one, if your goal is to actually gain size and you want to bulk up, right? You need to treat your nutrition and your training pretty much the same way, right? So in the gym, what's going to stimulate muscle growth? What's going to stimulate muscle growth is focusing on progression over time. So in plain terms, or the most simple terms possible, simply adding more weight to the bar over time, adding more reps, doing more over time. That's going to stimulate growth, right? Now what you need to do is support that nutritionally as well. So you need to progressively overload in the gym, but also progressively overload nutritionally. So what that means is over time, you need to keep feeding your body more and more food and more fuel to grow as you get bigger. So a lot of times people just get like an arbitrary number in their head. Oh, I'm going to bulk on 3,000 calories. That 3,000 calories, if you're 150 pounds, might get you to 160. Then what happens? It's like the same thing. If I lifted 50 pounds and I grew muscle from it, at a certain point I got to lift 60, right? You need to be doing the same thing nutritionally. So ramp your training up over time in the gym. Also progressively increase your calories. And you're going to keep gaining size. You're going to keep gaining strength, and they go hand in hand. Don't do one without the other. Got to check my heart rate. Give me 1 second, guys. Got to make sure. Got to pick this up. My conditioning has gotten much better since I've been doing this cardio consistently. So now my moderate pace barely gets my heart rate over 100 beats per minute. I'm trying to keep it at least 120. So, all right. Thoughts on melatonin. So melatonin is obviously used to help improve sleep. For some people, that could be very effective. Other people, depending on the situation, it might not be the best option. One supplement that I actually do like if your goal is specifically sleep, is magnesium. I think that it's one supplement that a lot of people underutilize, especially with all the benefits that it has, from the benefits of training performance, mood, sleep, things like that. It's one that I'd highly recommend you just kind of throw in your supplement protocol if you want improvements in any of these areas. I really like your stuff. I like how you call spade to spade. Keep that good stuff. Yeah, so my goal has always been with you guys to really tell you guys what actually works, what doesn't, what's nonsense, what's here simply for content, right? Because that's what a lot of people are doing online today. They're just producing content. That's all they're doing at the end of the day. And it's kind of disguised as information or advice. But at the end of the day, the stuff that gets the most views, likes, follows, is good content, right? And the information you guys need to hear, if your goal is actually to build muscle, doesn't make for the best content, unfortunately, There's so many things that anybody with a platform can do to get more views, to get more likes, get more follows. And unfortunately, that's not always the best advice for building muscle. So I always tell you guys what actually works, what actually is the truth, what actually, has been my experience over the last 22 years of training. And, I appreciate that you guys take that advice and run with it, So I'm glad you guys are utilizing that information too as well. So appreciate your support as well. You probably walk in the room and folks start to quiver with their weak tendencies and dysmorphia of the mental capacity one can withstand. Laying eyes on a Zeus god. So that's funny. It's funny, but on a serious note for a second, it's funny because a lot of people that get into lifting kind of get this, it's like today it's trendy, especially for the younger generation. Like, I don't think I relate too much. Not that I know I don't relate to it too much, but it was a very different time when I started training. When I started training, building a great physique, it gave you more of a kind of like a silent confidence, right? Like, if you have a lot of muscle mass, you feel good, you're strong, you reached your goals, you have a silent confidence about it. It's more like most of the guys that I grew up with that even as a younger age, like that looked great, that got in great shape, never bragged about it or really wanted to show it off in public. It was more like, yeah, I this is my lifestyle, this is what I do, and I appreciate, obviously the respect that comes with that. Today, it's like this weird thing where it's like people want to show it off even if they don't have it. It's like crazy to me how I see so many guys that have been in the gym for like 3 months or even a year. And like the first thing they got to do is go on social media and show everybody, and it's like so unrelatable to me that like, I think it's also part of the reason why people train the way they do today versus how they trained when I was younger, because we didn't just want to, go to the gym so other people noticed. It was more for us, right? And I still do that today, to be totally honest with you. Like when I go out in public, I purposely try not to dress in a certain way that brings on too much unwanted attention, right? Like a lot of younger guys will purposely go out with like stringers on. Obviously I train in a stringer when I'm at home in my gym and stuff like that, but it's totally different generation. And it's very different that it's funny because I feel like what you're describing is how most people feel, the younger generation, especially now, when they start training. Like they want that impression when they walk in the room. How tall am I? So it's funny because I always assumed, because I think at one point in my life, I got measured in at close to like 5'10" and a half, almost 5'11". But last year at my contest, I got measured in at 5'9" and a half. And I said, that doesn't sound right. Check a couple more times. And I was, sure enough, 5'9" and a half. So apparently in 2025, 2026, that's my height. Have I been taller at one point in my life? I don't know. But yeah, 5'9" and a half is the number. Hello, I'm from India. Shout out to you guys in India, man. It's crazy how big of a following I have in India. I mean, I have followers all around the world. But man, my India supporters are really hardcore supporters, man. So shout out to everybody from India. And I know bodybuilding in India, it's a very well-respected thing. A lot of Indians like just love bodybuilding, and I appreciate that and respect that for sure. Okay, so 29, 250 pounds, was in a car accident, but ready to get back in the gym. Sorry to hear about that, man. I hope you're doing well. I'm used to resting for 5 hours after work. Any advice? Starting new routines. Well, what I could say is no matter what the situation is, if you're starting a new routine and you're just getting into something that you weren't doing prior, the main thing is setting a realistic expectation of what you can stick to consistently. So with that being said, if you're doing nothing before, a lot of times the mistake people make are they'll say, okay, I'm going to jump right into going to the gym 6 days per week, 2 hours a day. And if you go from nothing to that, there's a very high likelihood that it's not going to be sustainable. And at one point, you're probably just going to either burn out or you're going to just go back to what you're doing. But instead, if you say, okay, I'm doing nothing right now, I'm going to start as little as 3 days a week. I'm going to go for an hour. I'm going to make it super simple to start. You can always build off of that momentum. And then you can always get a 4th day, a 5th day if you need to, right? So my advice to you is start with the absolute minimum that you need to build momentum and then focus on improving from there. So start out with what you could, handle without question. Build from there. How do you know when to stop a bulk, 20, 30 pounds? Really depends on where you start the bulk. A lot of times people start a bulk heavier or fatter than they should, and then their bulk time is going to be limited. So my general rule of thumb is once you get above a certain body fat percentage, that's time to stop the bulk. Doesn't matter how long it is. So it's more about reaching a certain body fat percentage because now once you get past a certain body fat percentage, your body's not going to utilize the nutrients the same way as when you were leaner, and you're actually going to make it more difficult to keep gaining muscle. You're going to make it easier to store body fat. So for most guys, like the high end of that, I would say like 20% body fat is absolutely the time to cut off a bulk. I don't believe any guy should really get that high unless there's certain situations where it might be a very extended bulk and they're going to spend a ton of time dieting. But a general rule of thumb, I don't really like guys to go much above like 16% body fat. And then for certain physiques, like myself included, I tend to sit very well underneath that. So anywhere between like 12, 14% is kind of my threshold. Like for me, that the fattest I'll get is about 14% body fat. All right, let's check heart rate. Make sure we're still doing good here. Hold on, guys. All right, good. It's getting hot in here too. I got a thermal on. All right. Am I pedaling or walking? Yeah, so I'm on a spin bike right now, pedaling. If you guys have watched any of my other lives, a lot of times I am actually walking. So I do 25 minutes of cardio 5 times per week. So I'm doing it at about 120, 140 beats per minute. But I'll often be walking on my walking pad just to get my daily steps in. So I try to hit 10,000 steps daily, and then I'll do the cardio on top of that. So, I'd probably get close to 5,000, 6,000 steps a day just for my daily activity. So generally I'll spend, a few minutes here and there on my walking pad getting up to that 10,000 steps. That's not cardio for me. That's just something I hit daily with my steps. So, but right now I'm doing my actual cardio. Can low to moderate reps with heavier weights build with some higher reps for smaller muscles. 4 day per week, upper lower split with one arm training separate. So I'm trying to understand the question, to be honest with you. So to answer the first part of it, low to moderate reps with heavier weights build some muscle. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's probably where the majority of your training should be spent. Heavier loads, lower or moderate repetitions, because those are the sets and the weights that you could generally push closer to failure more effectively. Once the reps start getting very high, it's a very inefficient way to train to or near failure. Now, there's obviously benefits to higher repetitions, but if we're talking about strictly just trying to be the most efficient with our repetitions to building mass, they should mostly be in the lower repetition range or even the moderate repetition range. What state are you in? So it's funny because I usually think this is obvious, but not many people realize, but I am in New York. So, and I think even the way I say it makes it obvious according to most people. So yeah, New York, I've lived here my whole life. How long are your cardio sessions daily? Yeah, so 25 minutes, five days per week. Something about someone, Drew Peacock, dropped a bad short about this channel. Came here. Have you seen it? I don't know who it is. Never seen it. Maybe I gave him a shout out. Who knows? I always have been overweight. My goal is to reach 12%. I maintain that for life. Yes, so, 12% is, for some guys, a little bit more difficult to maintain than others, but it's still well within a very healthy and sustainable range. A lot of guys get this idea that they want to be 6-7% body fat and maintain it. Yeah, you can do that, but that's going to require so much effort over time. And it's not the most comfortable place to sit long term. When you talk about 12%, realistically, for most guys, anywhere between 11 and 14%, if you diet correctly, is a pretty sustainable body fat percentage to sit in most of the year. Like I said, I never get above 14%. I tend to sit in very well and comfortably around 12%. Even when I'm pushing calories, I actually have to force feed myself to get fatter than 12% body fat. So it's mostly about dieting down to a very lean body fat and then letting it come back up a little bit by eating more. And then once your body reaches its body fat set point around 12%, you can maintain it pretty effortlessly. So yeah, absolutely. I started doing 2 days adding in calisthenics workout daily. Do you think that helps my fullness on a cut, or am I overdoing it? So it's a great question because I see the logic behind it. And the logic is, okay, if I do a second workout, I'm doing calisthenics, which gives you a great pump, will that help keep, my fullness? Truth of the matter is, the more volume you do and the more pump training you do over time, especially in a calorie depleted state, you're actually depleting more and more muscle glycogen that you have to replenish through nutrition. So what happens is if you just go to the gym and you just keep doing endless sets, by the end of the workout, you're gonna flatten out because you just have no more glycogen in the muscles. And the only way you fill back out is rest and eating more carbs and glycogen, storing more glycogen from those carbs, right? So your 2-a-day training sessions most likely are actually flattening you out more than they're making you full. All right, guys, we got like 2 more minutes. I'll probably stay on for a couple more, but I got to finish up this cardio session. Let's make sure we're getting it in. Okay, cool. I got to pick it up. Got to pick it up a little bit. Apparently, I'm getting pretty conditioned here where I got to move pretty fast to get this heart rate up. All right. Thank you for being real and sharing your experiences on our channel. Yeah, man, absolutely, 100%. It'd be too much effort for me to get on here and have a facade or anything like that. So try to just keep things as real as possible, you guys. Shout out from Virginia. Shout out to everybody from Virginia, man. Missed out on January 19th. Sign up. When is the next day to join? So he's referring to my 12-week mass blast. So we just actually launched intake 3. So there will be a 4th intake for anybody that wants to get in on it. I've yet to release that date, but stay tuned. What's today? Wednesday. By the end of the week, I should have a date announced. But because you guys are on this live, if you want to get first dibs on it, I have to know exactly when that's going to be. I can get you guys in right away. Send me an email. It's peter@oldschoolmassgain.com. Okay? Just email me. Let me know that you're on the live and that you want to get in on the next intake. And I'll get you set up early. Okay? Because you guys are here on the live. If you want to jump in, let me know. So again, the email is peter@oldschoolmassgain.com. Just mention you were on the live and you want to get on the next intake and I'll get you set up. Okay, how many minutes are we on here with this cardio? We got like another, I think we're over time actually. But I'm going to keep going for a couple minutes here. Oh, that's actually it. Time right there. Okay, cool. But let's stay on the live for another couple minutes so I can answer these last questions. And then I got to have my last meal of the day because I am absolutely starving. And I got to get to bed in like the next half hour. So we got to move things along here. But let's answer these last couple of questions. Does working out with dumbbells or bench and resistance bands still make a difference for building muscle? Yeah, I mean, your equipment's definitely limited, but at the end of the day, as long as you can progressively overload, it doesn't matter what you use, right? You could do that with dumbbells. You could do that with bands. Obviously, it's not the best way to do it because you're limited with your equipment, but especially if you have nothing versus that, you can make that go a long way. You can make dumbbells go a long way provided you got heavy enough dumbbells. If you're a little limited with the weight, just do more reps over time. That's a form of progressive overload as well. Okay, so do you get blood tests, any markers off? So great question, actually, because it's a little bit off topic from what we talk about, and it's actually a very important thing, especially now. I'm 36, right? When I was younger, stuff like that's not something I really paid attention to. You just assume, okay, you don't have any type of health issues, you're good to go, right? As you get older, you start to look at these things a little bit more. So, yeah, I'm pretty on top of stuff like that, like with blood work. I tend to get a full panel done every 6 months, roughly. Sometimes even more frequently, depending on if I'm going through a diet phase or a gaining phase. For me, generally my blood work always looks pretty much spot on. The one thing that I have to be careful with is my cholesterol does tend to get slightly elevated when I bulk. And this is all diet related because it's every single time I've gotten labs done when I'm in a deficit, my blood work is all green, right? When my calories are very high, which when I bulk, this last bulk I was eating about 4,500 calories a day. Carbs were over 550 grams daily. And my step count was pretty low, like some days 6,000 calories. I was the biggest and strongest I was. But, naturally eating that many carbs, calories, and, obviously the quality of the food at that point to get that amount of calories in wasn't the best. My cholesterol did tend to shift a little bit. I never was at an alarming number that like required, medication or things like that. And it always reverses itself the second I go on a diet phase. But for me, yeah, like that's one thing I keep an eye out with my blood tests and my markers is, cholesterol. And that's all going to come down to diet for me personally. So simply changing nothing but putting myself in a calorie deficit, everything is spot on. So that's one thing I keep my eye on. Obviously, as you get older, you start to look at other things too as well. But for the most part, it just goes to show that how impactful your not only your diet, but how many calories you're eating impacts your blood work. So, yeah, that's one thing, especially if you guys are going through bulking and cutting phases. Keep an eye out on your blood work during that time. So, like if you get labs one time when you're doing a diet phase or in a deficit, compare that to how you look in a bulk, right? And you'll find that almost 9 times out of 10, every situation, your blood levels and everything are going to be improved across the board in a deficit. All right, so one last question here. I got to get I'll answer 2 questions here. Then I got to go. First question, are you Persian? You look Persian. Someone answered, he's Armenian. Yes, that's correct. I am Armenian. I'm not Persian. I am actually also Italian. So my last name is Armenian. My mother's Italian, so I'm actually 50-50. So that's where I get my last name from, though. Hey, Pete, your thoughts on Dorian Yates, torso and limbs setup? So I love torso and limbs. I think it's one of the most underrated splits across the board. I really can't think of a better 4-day split for bodybuilders, like in general. Like if you want like the generic 4-day bodybuilding split, I truly believe it's a torso and limbs split. Dorian Yates using a lower volume approach works super well with that setup because you are combining, chest, back, and shoulders in one day and then arms and legs in the next. Doing super high volume with that type of setup is not always the best way to do it. So huge fan, absolutely. All right, I got to close this out, but I'll read the last comment to close it out. Thanks for the years of drama-free, consistent, high-quality advice. Pete, no questions here. Can't think of anything you haven't answered for me with your body of work already up here on YouTube. Appreciate that, man. I really do. I appreciate all you guys for the support. You guys that come on here and leave those comments or interact with me on a daily basis, letting me know that you appreciate the stuff I do. That stuff is huge for me, man. So thank you. I continue to do what I do because of guys like you. So I'll keep the content coming, and I appreciate all the support. So for now, I am going to grab my post-workout meal, and I'll see you guys on the next one.